Okay, welcome everybody. Do you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our very first team review. I am Becca, as you all may know, your wonderful host. And today we're going to be talking about, I want to start with something small. I hope that's okay. Because there's going to be plenty of time for the other thing. But so handle when there are no scanners in the tool filter. There's a link to the issue in the agenda. So let me start a little bit more high level. I'll share my screen. So, okay, here we have the vulnerability report. The primary user of this page is the security engineer, and their goal is to basically assess all of these potential vulnerabilities that were detected in as part of security scanning when a pipeline runs and an MR is merged. These vulnerabilities that weren't triaged as part of the MR process or during that time, they get added to this vulnerability report. So the goal is to assess which of these vulnerabilities are true positives, right? That's first, because there's a lot of false positives, because we want to set these scanners to detect things that might be vulnerabilities, but basically we want to make it overly sensitive so it catches things that may not be vulnerabilities, rather than tightening it up so much that it misses something that's potentially a huge security flaw and can lead to something devastating in terms of compromising the security of the project. So handle when there are no, okay, right.
Found this on the web.
Cool, thanks.
Talking to Siri.
My responds to nothing. Okay, so if I click into, nope, I'm not going to do that. Right. Okay, so we have filters on the vulnerability report that look like this right now. You can filter by status. There's 4 primary statuses. All of this has gotten a little bit more complex in recent milestones, because originally it was needs triage, confirmed, resolved, and dismissed. But now we have dismissal reasons. So you can set it to all statuses. It defaults to needs triage and confirmed, because those are essentially the to-dos of the vulnerability report. So I, as a security engineer, want to come here and see things that haven't been addressed yet, right? So I'm not too worried about the confirmed and the resolved and dismissed, because I assume that my team and I have already taken care of those items. So I just want to see my to-dos, basically my vulnerability to-dos, which are those in either a needs triage or confirmed state.
Who's the user of this, really quick?
The
Like
security
the
engineer.
Okay.
Yeah. So my job is to keep the project. If I'm the security engineer, my job is to keep the project or the group of projects, because often this is done at the group level, which contains a number of projects, safe, making sure they're free of vulnerabilities, secure, which means that, sensitive information won't get leaked, hackers can't access private information, etc. So the security scanning helps me identify where those potential risks are. So we have the status filter, we have severity. All of our scanners detect these vulnerabilities with a severity level. So from critical down to info. Unfortunately, we also have an unknown, where we don't know what the scanner can't always assess the criticality or the severity. So unknown is also one of them. But we default to all severities. We default to all tools. And this is the filter that I'm going to be talking about for the issue that I'm about to share, but I'm just giving some background context first. So these are all of the tools we offer. A tool is basically a type of security scanner. So you have API fuzzing all the way down to secret detection and then manually added. Manually added is if I go to submit vulnerability here, oftentimes security engineers have another like they use like HackerOne or something else where they become aware of a vulnerability that maybe the scanners haven't picked up, and so they want to add it manually. So that's what manually added is referring to, because it's not one of the scanners that we offer. These scanners, I need to say, are often like comprised of, so SAST, for example, I know really well because I used to be on the static analysis. Security testing is what SAST stands for. I used to be on that team. And so basically to show you this, you can go to security configuration. They used to be called configuration, didn't it? Now it's security figure, whatever. So I can configure SAST, so I can customize my SAST scans in a way that I want to. I can exclude certain areas of the repository if I don't care about vulnerabilities there that are just going to generate noise that are irrelevant. So like tests, for example. I won't go into all of this right now, but wait a minute. This is different than when I designed it. Where are the scanners? I'm confused now. And I wish Michael was here. Huh. There used to be like a collapsible area here where you could look at all the scanners. That's okay. Now I'm curious about what happened there. That's okay because we can
talk to Michael.
Yeah. But essentially it's in our documentation here. So okay. So basically we don't use like the way that our SAST is built out is it's a bunch of open source scanners. So we're basically taking all of these open source scanners and putting it under the umbrella of GitLab SAST. We need so many scanners because they work with different languages. So the scanner is going to run if this language is detected. So if the MR has code in it that's written in Go, SemGrep will be the security scanner that's checking for the vulnerabilities. I don't want to go too far down this path, but just know that there are these analyzers. Sorry, I misspoke. We call them analyzers. There are a ton of analyzers that make up the SAST scanner. So before, right now, before we introduce this new implementation, the tools are just listed as SAST. So you can't filter down by individual analyzer that comprises SAST. But I, as a security engineer, may only want to see those Go vulnerabilities, in which case I want to filter by SemGrep. So that's what we're introducing as part of this. We're introducing the analyzers within the scanner. Does anyone have any questions at this point? because there's a lot to this, and I'm trying to provide as much information as possible while still keeping it high level enough. It's very hard.
Alana has
No,
a,
that was a
yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
yeah, that
Good.
was a great overview. My questions are primarily because I'm new and so I'm seeing like obviously these flows for the first time. So these are more just like I'm just curious, no need to like rabbit hole into what it is. But is there a way to filter for projects, and would a security engineer care? And I know that's not like a part of what you're designing here. And then my second question was for the automatic scanners that you just went through, can users set timing, or is that just like automatically run as like in like a automatic basis, I guess?
Yeah, so I know that we have a sync after this meeting, so I can go and give you more of like a full tour. But to answer the questions at a high level right now, this is at the project level. If I go to the group level vulnerability report, that's when I also have a project filter here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then what was the second question?
For the automatic scanners that you just went through, like SAST,
Yeah.
and in the specific languages, do those run, like, do they run vulnerabilities report automatically, or can a user kind of set that like a weekly basis, a daily basis?
So, I mean, I'll have to talk to Michael, who took over this configuration. Now I've lost it. Who took over the configuration of SAST. So the way that it was when I designed it, you could say which scanners, or sorry, which specific analyzers within SAST that would run if it was detected, where the language is detected in the code, it would know which analyzer to run. So I may have to start more high level.
Your question is just like, when do they run the scan, right? That's at the MR level, and it's via pipeline.
Yeah.
So every MR,
okay.
if you turn the scanners on, the SAS scanner on, and you run an MR, or you create an MR, it's going to run a pipeline that will run the scanner on that code that's in the MR.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I go to a pipeline page, you can see as part of this test phase, there's build package, et cetera. As part of the test phase, I can customize this as well if I want them to run in a different stage. It's just order of operations, which I want to run first or second. But you can see that under the test phase is where these scanners run. And they're not all running. They're picking up what language is being used in the code that's being proposed to be shipped. So it's picking up Go because it's running semgrep, but it's not going to run all of these every single time. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and we can do more of like a high level of what is secure versus govern, what's threat insights, all of that on our call later. But for this right now, we're just going to be focused on the tool filter. And the question here is, how do we show these individual analyzers? Like we have to keep it under each scanner. There's a lot of design. There's pajamas, which is our design system. There's some constraints here. So I designed something basically so that you could select all of SAST, for example, and then there's an accordion that would open, and then you can like drill down into the individual analyzers if you wanted to. Basically, I've gotten pushback from the foundations team in pajamas that that's not how this type of component works. So we can't add these collapsible sections. So we've gone back and forth. I've proposed a couple of things, and working within the constraints that we have with this drop-down component, we can do a number of things. So here's what it would look like if there are results in this list, we can only show that that analyzer, right? Because it doesn't necessarily make sense to show all of the analyzers under each scanner when a lot of them would turn up as empty or there are no findings. So, oh gosh, I'm not doing a good job of this. We're deciding what to do when there can be a couple situations why a scanner wouldn't show, or an analyzer or scanner wouldn't show up. Either A, it's not enabled, or B, there are no findings. There are no vulnerabilities on the list for that scanner. So the front-end engineers and I have been talking about how to handle this. Do we remove all of the empty groups? So essentially the scanners that don't have any results, either because they're not enabled in the first place or because there are no vulnerabilities matching that. So that would look something like this. Like, let's say that there's only this one type of analyzer under SAST that has vulnerabilities. So the pros, you don't see an empty group, so you don't try to click on it and then get like, oh, there are no findings. But the cons is you don't see a list of all possible tools. So that's why we've also explored, this is something the front end engineers proposed, and I definitely don't like this because you have to do the work, like it's a lot of cognitive load to have to discern no scanner found from where there is actual content. If we did something like this, I'd at least want to make this like a lighter shade of gray so you could more easily scan and see and to find the ones that do have findings, do have vulnerabilities. But the alternative is to list all of, no, I don't like that either. We're going to ignore that one. This is what I propose. Basically, okay, we don't need to talk about all of the options. I'm between two options. One, only show the scanners and subsequent analyzers that have vulnerabilities, that are enabled and have vulnerabilities. Or do we show the ones that have vulnerabilities and then have like a not enabled section? The pro of a not enabled section is the security engineer can still see all of the possibilities for scanners that aren't turning up findings, either because they're not enabled or because they don't have any vulnerabilities. But if, for example, somebody on my team has only enabled SAST, I may not be aware that there are other security scans available. And I think the conclusion I've come to is what Michael Fangman basically said, which this isn't the right area to be discovering all of the potential scanners. Like,
yeah, but you said something different earlier though, that there's two options here. There's one where it's not enabled, but there's also where the vulnerabilities that are listed in the report are only pertinent to certain scanners. So if there are vulnerabilities for scanner A, then you'll show that there. But if there aren't any for scanner B, even though it's enabled, you still won't
even though
show
it's
it.
enabled. Yes.
So that's different than not enabled, but it's just not found. There's no reason to filter on it because
Yeah. And unfortunately, with the way that YAML files work, we can't surface not enabled from there are no findings. We just know that it's not there, but we can't surface why it's not there. So this not enabled label isn't actually correct. As Daniel points out here, it's not enabled, but rather no vulnerabilities for the tool exists in the project. This can be due to either not having it configured in the first place, or it didn't run on the latest pipeline, or the scanner ran and has not found any vulnerabilities. So really it would be something like no results.
yeah, I think Michael's
after
comment is
talking
super
all of this-
pertinent for not enabled,
What?
but not Michael's
taking this
comment
off.
about Michael's comment about showing not enabled scanners makes sense, but they may still want to see scanners that just don't have any vulnerabilities to sort of confirm that it's set up, you're just in the clear for this scanner. Because then a user might
But
come to us
we
and be like,
can't-
why aren't I seeing any for Go? I swear I set that up. And they might not know that it's because they don't have any vulns found.
Right, but
No results makes maybe more sense than to still show
right.
them.
Because as Daniel says here, we can't tell them we can't tell them why there's no results. It could be one of three reasons.
Oh, we can't even differentiate between disabled?
No.
I find that hard to believe.
All we know is that when the pipeline runs, it looks for that like sast.gitlab.ci or /ci YAML file. And there's another issue that's been open for years where we're just like, can we look for that YAML file? And that way we can say, because I mean, it's kind of a mess on the configuration page too. We have this over here, like not enabled and enabled. That's not entirely accurate necessarily. It could be that because the status of the tools only apply to the default branch and is based on the latest pipeline.
Well, that's
An
just
enabled
saying
scanner will not be reflected as such until the pipeline has successfully executed and generated valid artifacts. So without getting too in the rabbit hole there, I think what I'm leaning towards is just only showing where there are results.
Yeah,
Just
the
letting
bottom
the
section
term-
will be gone.
Yeah.
agreed, because why would you have it's like a filter that is a filter that's going to filter down the list, so it's confusing even that the not enabled would maybe not even be clickable. It's combining too many things
Right.
in one
Yeah.
dropdown to have a different behavior. My question is for, let's say that there are many under SAST, can I select the SAST header and it selects all of the children?
What did we do with that?
Because I kind of feel like the header is not interactive in the
It's
drop-down
not.
component. So that could be annoying if SAST has 15 things and I'm interested in all of them.
Yeah. There's been so many different MRs and issues related to this. So originally we had like all SAST, all dependency scanning, all DAST as the top, but then a front end engineer pointed out that it's silly to have all when there's only
Yeah.
one.
It's not logical. Yeah, my main point of feedback is I actually don't think a dropdown is an appropriate component for the level of interaction that you're talking about here. I think you need to open a drawer or a modal to give that fine-grained, like what you were saying at the beginning with the accordion. Like, I think that's a more appropriate, like, a checkbox, and when I check it, I get sub checkboxes that are only shown to me when I say I am interested in this. And I think you're pushing this component past where it is usable, considering the amount of potential scans and considering that they're not able to select the parent item.
Yeah, so this is going to be like a intermediary solution, because I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. I agree with you. We have this advanced filtering issue that's going to be, I'm not sure when exactly it'll be implemented, but the designs are completed right now. And so we're going to be moving to the filter search component.
Cool.
And away from these static filters, because we want to add a lot more filters, and it's just not scalable with like the drop downs we have anyways. So this will just be like an intermediary thing. And I guess like I need to think through whether or not this would work.
I think it doesn't, because of the contradiction you just said, all container scanning, and then what happens if I select Trivi underneath, because they are presented on the same level, but they actually are like a this or that. So it's I think in any case, I think moving to the filtering like you showed, I think that's awesome. But I think in any case, what with the level, the fine-grained detail that you're trying to do, I don't think it fits in a dropdown. And usually when I'm trying to design something and it doesn't fit, it's just like, okay, it's not like, it's like this component is not appropriate for the thing that my user needs to do.
Mm. When you say like open up in a drawer,
yeah, like have a button that opens a drawer or a modal, and I would have probably, because the functionality that you currently have is I can only select container scanning. I don't have the fine-grained ability. So some people may be already happy with that functionality, so maybe we default to that, but give the ones who want to drill down into the specifics. Because the other thing is, like, because these headers are not selectable, if I'm interested in like 15 things, I mean to go through and check 15 different checkboxes. So I would say like default that the user can select a group like container scanning. And then when they select the group, we reveal additional options if they want to, for example, deselect some of those options. So kind of exactly what you described at the beginning, that you said the pajamas team pushed back because that's not how the dropdown should work. I think the interaction that you described is correct. I would just chuck that interaction in a drawer.
but what if we can say like, okay, if there's 2 or more analyzers, then include an all option?
It's not
And if
logical.
there's
It's not
only-
logical though. It's not what it's all dast versus dast underneath. Like it's unclear what the interaction between those two are. And I think if one deselects the other, like a checkbox should only control itself. And if there's a relationship between checkboxes, it's already like, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't think it's like, I think it's confusing in this format because they're presented as equal options, but the first option has a very different functionality than the second, but they look the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I don't disagree. I wonder if there's a way. So like with the filter search component. So if we go into, let me go to the GitLab project. So there's actually content there. So label is, so I wonder if this was like, I
Dast
think this could work
is,
if it was scanner is, and then we also had analyzer is, or
Mhm.
scanner. Oh. I'm trying to think if like we can break it
Yeah.
down separately. But how do we know which analyzer they'd have to
well, if they say
they
scanner
select
is Dast,
analyzer,
then it's everything. If they say
they'd have to
analyzer
say
is
scanner equals DAST and then analyzer, and it will filter by the DAST analyzers.
something
Or
like
if they
that.
just go straight to analyzer is, they would have to select a scanner first, and then we know to present the analyzers of that on the next. Like it could be multi-step.
Well, at that
I
point,
still
they've
think
said
that's
analyzer. So they said they want an individual analyzer. So at that point, you would have to, I think you would have to list them out by every analyzer. They say analyzer is, and then you give them a list of every analyzer.
yeah, I think this suffers from the same thing of the relationship. So if I say scanner is Dast, analyzer is more specific thing, then if I'm the computer, I'm only going to show the more specific analyzer, but the user may want to see Dast. You know what I mean? It's like the relationship is unclear there. Like I think it suffers from the same problem. There's a relationship.
Okay. Okay. I thought this was going to be quick and easy, but it is indeed not. So I will have to just come up with an intermediary solution for this and then think a little bit bigger for where we're going to move to when we move away from these drop downs.
If you go with the
But-
solution that you're leaning towards, which is don't show the ones that are for whatever reason not, you know, like the not enabled ones, so whatever it is.
No results. Yeah.
No results. And let's say that there's 15 SAST scanners, and I now have to manually go through and check all 15. And in the past, I was happy to see them all. We could be introducing, I don't know your users, but we could be introducing like a lot more work for the same interaction that they get kind of for free today. So I'm wondering, is it worth trying to solve this in a way that it's like the current functionality is preserved, but the ones who want to drill down can?
I mean, could this not also be solved by just like changing the component so that you can make the header clickable?
I don't think
And
Pajamas is going to be like fine with that.
No, they're probably not.
Yeah, I think you got to get out of the drop down.
Okay.
How interim is this?
Well, I guess it depends on what this solution ends up being.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, they're going to be moving to the search bar. When are they going to move to the search bar? Because I'm asking in terms of how much energy do you put into the interim solution, and how much do you put into the final solution?
Right. Enhanced filtering, so 16.7.
So next milestone, so in a month, they're going to build this.
Yep.
Which means you really need to
So it
figure
would
out the
be
solution for the search bar now.
yeah.
Or wait, which one are they building in 16.7? Sorry.
Enhanced filtering. Yeah, the filter, like moving to
Okay,
this
so
component.
right. I mean, they're hacking away at the current thing just as an interim solution. Let it live for another month or 2 months, I guess.
I
it
mean,
would be.
I don't know if the reorg, and I just found out yesterday that we're losing 2 engineers to move to off and off.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to affect this timeline or not.
As it stands, if this is still real, this timeline,
Yeah.
it sounds like you should focus on the search filter, the new version, not this
Yes.
existing thing.
Yeah, because it'll just be for a milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
it changes, then we'll, like maybe this issue
Yeah.
doesn't even matter. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's where I'll put my energy right now.
Yeah.
It's just so yeah. It's so weird because like, all the statuses show, all the severities show, even if there's no results. So I'm like ending up in a place where all of these identifiers work in different ways. Like, I mean, Justin, I know you've been involved with this, but like with project and with identifier, which is like a unique ID associated with each vulnerability kind of, and project, like I need to be able to have those jump to the top of the menu because there's an potentially not infinite, but almost infinite number of items. And so this is something else I'm struggling with the drop down too, is like, you have these drop downs that are so long. If I have like has AI assistance and has been reopened, like this is a long drop down, but I can at least like scroll down and see what they are, because the filter would probably truncate at a certain point and just say like has AI plus 2 more.
Well, you're planning on cleaning it up, right? So it's not just right now, if you search on an author and then you search on another author, there's 2 authors showing up, 2 chiclets or whatever of authors. You're going to merge those in this design, right? They're going to build that in the component.
That's one of the requirements for the component. Yeah.
Okay.
Because right now it would just list them all out, and that would be a nightmare. Because if I select all of these, it would show all of these.
Right. So we're going to compress those into showing the first or second, and then plus 3 more or something.
And then plus, yeah. But if I want to find out what those plus 3 more are, they have to move to the top. Otherwise, with something like identifier, I could be scrolling for an hour looking for that check mark where it is in the list.
Right.
So it's like I'm already getting towards a point where these work kind of differently. And maybe that's okay. I mean, maybe it's like there's different logic that's associated with each one.
Looking
But they
at
still work in
Katie dropped an example of how parent-child relationships with checkboxes in the agenda. I think you've explored something like that inside the menu. Or I know someone has. Like we wanted to make it, at one point we tried to make checkboxes more checkboxy in our menu,
right,
as opposed to the really in-between check state that we have on these menus.
yeah.
Did you ever explore anything like this? I know, Katie, you're suggesting a drawer in its entirety.
Yeah, I mean, I've explored this in the drop down and then, got pushed back that we can't do something like that. Or like we don't use check boxes. I mean, essentially what I was saying before, being able to like select the header rather than having like all SAST below the header SAST, just making it so you can like select SAST the header. But of course, then that changes the logic for every other drop down. Like people could then think that you can click on the header or the parent. So I think, yeah, I mean, I've explored similar things in the drop down, but I think Katie's point here is that it can't be in a drop down.
Unless you can figure out a way to break it up into pieces. through the search.
No, I don't think it's appropriate, because if a dropdown has like 15 items, then I think it's already stretching. You can't really get an overview of what's in it. Then it's a sign that it's already, even without the parent-child relationship, like I think it's too much for a dropdown.
But thinking about how our current search works, like if you're searching on an author, there's 2,000 potential authors.
Yeah, but when
in
you're
GitLab.
searching on an author, you're not browsing, you're searching. This is like more of a browse, and you're usually selecting one author, not like 15 or 20. This feels way more like a browse interaction. And to be able to browse, I need to clearly see the options that I have and have not selected and the options available. And if I'm in this tiny little thing, even discounting the parent-child relationship, it's not a good experience.
Well, that's a good
It's-
question. Is
it's
this
not-
a browser or is this a search? If as a user,
Yeah,
would I
it's
go
not- it's
looking
not-
for all
it's-
SAS scanners?
The reason that I'm trying to find like relationships between the vulnerabilities. So, and like okay, let me think through this. So one thing that I was trying to address originally with the dropdowns was, what if I want to exclude something? So sometimes there is a very noisy scanner and I just want to deal with it later and I want to exclude it from the list, in which case I want to go in here and exclude something. And that's one thing that's really nice about the filtered search component is in step 2 here for the operator, I can select is not one of and exclude that thing. That makes my life a lot easier as the designer, because then I don't have to consider like, well, if there's 14 analyzers here, I don't have to like click on every single one except CubeSec, because that's the one I want to exclude. I can just say excludes.
Well, you could say does not equal CubeSec, right? That's
right. Is not one of, yeah.
But what I'm wondering, based on what Katie is more or less wondering, is what type of goal do they have in mind when they go here? Are they saying in their head, I want to filter on SAST analyzers? So they will go in here and they'll type SAST, and then it'll pull up all SAST analyzers, and then it'll check the ones they want. Or is it going to say analyze or scanners, and then it'll give them this ginormous one that has everything? Because the way our search bar works now is you say issues, or I'm sorry, let's keep it simple. You say author equals, and then you start typing Justin. So here will they say,
So I may only want to see one analyzer
SAST, and then they'll see the list that way.
I may only want to see.
You might want to see. Sorry, go ahead.
I may only want to see one analyzer at a time because I want to see the types of vulnerabilities it's turning up. I may then want to go and configure it or tune it in a way that gives me more valuable findings. So especially if I have like a custom scanner that I've added, I'll want to add that scanner, which involves going through the MR process, merging that MR, and then maybe running that custom scanner in a test project. I guess then I would be looking at it from within the MR. That's not a good example.
What was the user feedback that you got that led you to add this functionality of the fine-grained filtering?
I mean, excluding is a huge use case. Like, this thing is generating so much noise. I just want to put it off to the side for now. Another thing is like, I want to just deal with, let's say, like one language at a time, because the vulnerability report also has like bulk actions. So if I can scope it to all Go findings, there may be a solution where, once I've added those filters and I've scoped it to SEMgrep or whatever that analyzer is, I can then change the status because I'm confident that that semgrep analyzer didn't turn up the right, like with the combination of that type of analyzer and severity, like I don't care about all low semgrep findings. So, and it's a way of like bulk is a huge use case.
I think you're finding that
we have,
long menu isn't a reality. Users wouldn't actually see that. Their goal is to say, I want to find semgrep, to either include or exclude. So they would say,
right.
analyzer is, and then they type SEM. So they'll never see that ginormous list.
But do they want to see the parent, like I forget, like container scanning? Like, do they want to, is it also use case to see all 10
Well,
container
maybe
scanning?
we could show that little section just like this, where it's, scroll down so you can see the SAS ones. So it'll just show that section, and then as they start typing, it'll say SAS parent, and then oh, you don't have semgrep in there because I guess it's a different one. But anyway, you'll start typing analyzer equals BRA,
Right.
and it'll say SAS Brakeman. You'll have that indentation.
Yeah, but my question is, because you're saying the user is searching for a specific analyzer, and my question is, the current implementation is a group of analyzers. So do we also need to still support that functionality?
You need
Based
to
on what
select all.
Becca said their use case is, no.
No, but I may only want to see SAST. I think that's what Katie's saying.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, I could also just want to filter by SAST.
Well, then, so there's a difference between analyzer is and scanner is. Scanner is SAST. Analyzer is Brakeman. So if the user has a goal where they want to filter on scanner, all scanners, yeah, at that level, they'll say scanner equals SAST, done. And then they might say, I don't want the Brakeman analyzer from SAST, so they can say analyzer does not equal Brakeman.
That's what I'm leaning towards. I think that's how we're going to have to solve this. If they want to filter by SAS, they just say scanner equals.
And that's how you can get around. They have to be able to combine these types of filter lists in order to get the type of filtering that they want. And I think by breaking it down like that, instead of this BD list, you're actually doing it. You're adding a couple more. You're adding a scanner type. You're adding an analyzer type. I think that's it. You just need to break D into two different types of things.
Yeah, I think that works. I thought this was going to be like a quick 5-minute thing that we could get out of the way and then move on to the other thing. But I'm so happy we ended up discussing this in depth. I think that's that's the whole point of moving towards the filtered search component too, is that you can break things up without needing those individual boxes here, these individual buttons.
Yeah. It might help to list out all the goals, and then child use cases within them to make sure that breaking it up like this aligns with those workflows and mental models. But from what you just said, that seems like it could work. It works within the search bar filter component.
Well, this was really helpful.
Yay! First review was really helpful.
So I will, if there's any other feedback, I'll link to this since this is going to be the focus moving forward. I will put this in the agenda here. Cool. Well,
Awesome.
we're over time anyway, so.
Oh, good point. Should we make this an hour call? Did I make it 40 minutes? What did I do? Yeah, I only did 40 minutes. Should we adjust it so it's a full hour? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I guess so. We can always just end early.
Or I mean, I'll do 50 minutes because our typical, end 10 minutes before kind of thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you all.
Thanks, Becca.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Katie, I think you hit record. So how did you record? To your
YouTube?
computer? Yeah.
You hit record actually. I gave you permission.
Did I? I was clicking so quickly. I wasn't sure who started. Okay.
Yeah.
If it ends and then shows up that it's recording for you, then can you just post it to, I just was going to keep it in the UX playlist.
Yeah.
As opposed to creating a whole brand new one. Otherwise, if it's me, I'll deal with it.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good rest of your day.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.